hello, me again. Welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. Yes, that's right, another one. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the retail edition of the Ruby Sunday action figure, depicting her in her outfit from Doctor Who Dot and Bubble. This is of course a retail version and it is available from multiple different retailers throughout the UK, so that's quite exciting. It's a very busy time for Doctor Who action figures. I will be reviewing all the different variations of 15 and Ruby, so do stay tuned for those and ding that notification bell if you are interested. So as we always do, let's start off with a little tour around the new single carded packaging, and it looks lovely. The retail versions of 15 and Ruby, as well as the deluxe versions, have reminded me of what proper Doctor Who action figure packaging is like, and not the substandard stuff that we've seen within the B&M line over the past few years. I think packaging is really important. As a buyer, it instantly puts me in a good mindset that some care and attention has gone into making these products. At the top of the plastic window, we have the usual triangular cutout featuring the 60th anniversary Doctor Who logo and the BBC logo. Character options web address hiding away there at the top. We have the features bubbles. One reads articulated action figure, which applies slightly more than usual, so that's good. Part of the 5.5/14cm scale collector series. Do note the absence of the Vortex Edition bubble, because apparently that only applies to the Character Options online exclusives. Towards the bottom, the Character Options logo, as well as the 15th Doctor bubble, which is meant to represent the era. I think actually using the word era, as when it's a figure of Ruby, much like the Deluxe Edition, it doesn't particularly make sense. To save any confusion, just below this we do have the title card, which clearly states Ruby Sunday. You have your usual safety sticker. Unlike back in the day when they used to feature an image of the character from the TV story, this has now been replaced with your standard TARDIS graphic. The side of the box does in fact mimic the deluxe editions, just a simplified version, a nice clean white background of the slightly different format of Doctor Who logo. As for the back of the box, this continues the lovely style guide, a great use of colour. The vast majority of the company information is restricted to the bottom, including your good old official Doctor Who shiny sticker. Character description is exactly the same to the deluxe version, which I'm going to be a bit picky, but it would have been nice to see this changed, especially because this description is very Church on Ruby Road themed, and speaking of that story, sadly the image also hasn't been changed. It's still Ruby within her debut outfit, which obviously doesn't match the figure. They do this for the standard version of 15. Nevertheless, it's a great packaging and I love the design overall. Both of the boxes are very similar. They're the same shape, the same elements, they're just presented in a slightly different way. One of them's a cardboard box, one of them's a blister box. Like both of them are high quality, a lovely presentation, and it's not like the retail one has been neglected to the collector's edition. So here is the rather excellent Ruby Sunday action figure out of the box, and I've got to say I do prefer this version to the Vortex edition, simply because I think the colours within the outfit really come alive within the 5.5 scale. It's a more interesting figure. So the first aspect of the costume that I'm going to be taking a look at is the denim jacket. It has this lovely powdery finish with a darker wash applied over the top, giving it this lovely denim effect. Very oddly, of course, this sculpt was initially devised to be screen accurate to the Church on Ruby Road costume, which is just a matte black. And as I highlighted within that review, there's no wash on it or anything like that. We end up with this rather unusual situation where the repaint in fact ends up almost like this was the original intended costume for this sculpt, because it has a more comprehensive paint application. All of those creases and panels are still present. I love how just underneath the arm we have a bronze paint application to give the impression of an upper chest pocket. Obviously this has only been painted on rather than sculpted, but I think it works really well. It's a good illusion. As I highlighted within the Vortex Edition review, there is also a bronze paint application running down the side, a lovely serrated edge to give the impression of a zip. This is even present on the opposite side in between the fluff, which I really like. To me, the back of the jacket really highlights just how good this paint application is. It has a rather unusual chalky smudged finish. It really digs into the various creases within the jacket throughout. Of course, that stitching line running up the spine. This line continues onto the back of the shoulders as well. As with the previous release, that belt is still wrapping around the lower half of the jacket. No idea if this is screen accurate, probably not, but it's now a powder blue in keeping with the rest of the coat. The buckle has been given a lovely bronze highlight, again really sharply painted. Same complement extends to the studs at the other side of the belt, and the combination of buckles and studs present on the cuff of the jacket, which again, due to that light blue base, really stand out. Even just the little things of the belt being held in place by these hoops, and the way that this folds downwards, it all feels very realistic. As with the previous release, of course, there is various fluffy sections throughout, running down one side of the jacket, round to the lower trim, on both of the cuffs of the jacket, and even the fluffy shoulder pad sections. It definitely looks like a warm coat, doesn't it? This is certainly giving me the Shining vibes. As we covered with the previous Vortex edition, the first sections almost have a tanned wash to them. They're not a vibrant white. Meanwhile, this dot and bubble version very much is. It's a very bright white. I think that this works in the context of the costumes surrounded by that lighter blue. Same compliments also extend to the arms. They continue the lighter blue and darker blue finish. This definitely creates that denim impression. It looks very nice. If anything, it actually highlights how comprehensive this sculpt is, arguably more so than the original one. It's a darker wash having a real prominence towards the lower half of the arm. That is one thing that the retail versions do very well, and its colour. It's more varied, it's more eye-catching than their Vortex edition counterparts. The arms also sport some new points of articulation, very welcome and practically essential these days, ball-jointed shoulders, which do of course allow Ruby to do her best aeroplane impression. We also have the new joint at the arm as well, the standard bend at the elbow to roughly 90 degrees, and this allows her to also do this as well. The paint application on the hands is considerably sharp. I like that silver highlight representing jewellery. We also have some nail varnish in there as well. From what I can see, this appears to be a cherry red. It looks nice, it even keeps within the lines. Sadly, obviously it's the same sculpt, so it means that this Ruby also has the giant ET finger for some reason. Honestly, I think she could probably give the empty child a run for his money. Without a doubt, the jumper on the retail version of Ruby is the equivalent of the tartan skirt on the Vortex edition. It grabs the most detail, the printing is lovely. This time round, the base is this rather lovely cream shade. We have those ripples and textures underneath. This piping textured design is of course left behind from the original Character Options Online exclusive release. But to be honest, the retail version is much more exciting. This pattern over the top certainly hides that texturing underneath. It's such an effective sculpt reuse, it arguably even works better than the costume that it was initially intended to be. And the brilliant thing about the jumper is it's such an eye-catching pattern, you're almost blinded to the inaccuracies. Taking a closer look at the pattern by bending back the jacket, which is rather flexible, which is handy. This is made up of a series of dots which vary in size. We have mainly a glossy black running down the middle, as was the bottom and top, as well as this lighter red and lighter powder blue running across the centre. This is the component of the outfit that we are most familiar with, because within the story, when Ruby appears within Lindy's dot, of course she's only wearing the jumper and not the denim jacket which would come later on. It's not 100% screen accurate, but I don't care, because I really like the look of it, and I think it works well. It's a really logical repaint, and it's not some of the disasters that we've seen within the B&M exclusive line. Angling down from Ruby's neck, we do have a series of necklaces. These have all been given a silver highlight and divide up into various different hangings. No idea if this is accurate, but to be honest, it was always going to be the best outcome to paint them so they blend in with the rest of the outfit. So the next piece within Ruby's outfit is the skirt, which is arguably the biggest critique for this action figure, because Ruby does not wear a skirt within Dot and Bubble. She does, however, wear this rather dazzling tartan skirt within Church on Ruby Road. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it's also not the end of the world. We only see this complete look at the end of the story anyway, and at that point the majority of the focus is on Shooty's rather excellent delivery. The shots are only seen within the longer shots, and even then it's dimly lit, it's blurred. We see them more clearly within the behind the scenes. They are roughly this darker blue colour and are also around this length, so silhouette wise it still works. Skirt is divided with a panel diagonally there with a few creases throughout which look quite nice, exaggerated with that darkened wash. Visually it makes the sculpt more interesting, so I'm all for that. The brush strokes are effective, anything to avoid block colour to be honest. We also have a seam off to the side. Detail which is so easy to miss because it's obscured by the jacket dangling down. It's this small silver buckle there on top of the skirt. The silver paint apps are incredibly precise, it really stands out, I'm really impressed. And I love how the various creases within the fabric originate from this area. And rather handily, on the back there is a seam running down the middle anyway, so they do somewhat look like shorts. Especially the delve running up the middle. It is clear when you deconstruct this figure into its component parts that Character Options have clearly considered removing parts, adding new elements to make it look like different costumes, which is an effective cost-saving measure. And I really hope that we see Character Options utilising that in the future, rather than relying upon 100% reprints, as much as I do love this variant. Because of the slightly lighter colour palette of the retail version of Ruby, this section in between the jumper and the skirt does stand out a little bit more. It's a matte black. This is one of my favourite points of articulation across the whole figure. So it lets Ruby rock from side to side, which really aids posability. Depending on what angle you pose the figure at, this point of articulation can be quite visible. It may take away from the appearance a little bit, but I don't mind. Much like the Vortex edition, Ruby is sporting some coloured tights. From what I can tell, these are exactly the same colour to the Vortex edition. They are a murky grey with a slight hint of brown, and if anything do stand out a bit more than the other version. Or to be honest, this is probably down to the rest of the colour palette being a bit more exciting with brighter colours. Now the joys of the new articulation does mean that the ankle joint is a little bit more hidden than previously. So this new joint does still move back at 90 degrees as we are always used to, but oddly it does also move out to the side as well. Of course the upper leg articulation is obscured and hindered by the skirt, but that isn't really a problem. There is the 360 thigh joint though, and her boots do also move a 360 if you wish to break her ankles for some reason. So again, this does mean that the figure can be placed in more dynamic, exciting positions, which is great for action figure photography, but with that I think also comes the side effect of the figure being a little bit more vulnerable to falling over. Because this figure bends in places that character options figures have frankly never bent before, it does take a while to get used to it. I think my confidence at the minute is quite low when it comes to posing these figures because I'm scared that I'm going to break it. Ruby's boots are the same sculpt to the Vortex edition, and I have absolutely no doubt there will be people out there that can no doubt tell me exactly what type of boot these are and if they're accurate or not, but I think they certainly look the part. There is a slight sheen to them, a nice stressed effect within the material, even some little toggles towards the back, so that's fun. There are laces running down the centre which look considerably realistic, and these are excellently capped off with a dark grey paint application running around the sole and the treads at the bottom. Tread detailing also continues onto the bottom. Now bizarrely, Vortex Edition Ruby does have some silver studs on the boot which aren't present on the standard retail version, although to be completely honest I think this is probably an unintentional oversight. It is the most minor of criticisms as we basically don't see them in the story anywhere. With the exception of your usual unintentional variations within paint application, both of the Ruby Sunday heads are exactly the same regardless of if you get the Vortex edition or the retail version, and you know what, this is a superb likeness to Millie Gibson. Character options are using a tinted plastic, so the only paint application on the face is those smaller details like the eyes, eyebrows and lips. Results in, thankfully, a strong likeness not being lost with thick paint application. The lips are light peachy colour, the eyebrows a darker brown, they're not too overdone, not too caricature. The character options have included that eyebrow scar there on the left. The eyes too have been rather precisely painted, the eye whites stand out a lot, that light green iris in the centre, complete with the black and white dots, giving them a little bit of life. If I was going to critique anything, I would say that maybe a more prominent eyeshadow would have been nice, just to make the eyes stand out a bit more. As for the hair, this is also an excellent sculpt. We have lots of different strands curling around, it nicely sits on top of Millie's head. Particularly like how the strands coming down the side really frame her face. It's not just a block colour either, so that's really good. We have a series of lighter yellows, a little bit of orange in there as well. I think that this can be particularly seen towards the back. Not so much perhaps where you would most expect it, being the roots on top of her head. Sadly, I do think some of the hair washes are slightly lost on camera. It doesn't do it justice. It's not just a block colour, which is good, but maybe these washes could stand out a little bit more just to really sell the sculpt. But without a doubt, it is one of the strongest likenesses that character options have ever pulled out the bag. It's a very strong start for the Vortex collection, and I love the new techniques that they are using. Much like the rest of the figure, we have new and improved articulation, so it means that the head can actually move up and down, nod from side to side, and everything else, which is great for posing. Join is very well hidden as well, so bonus points for that. The retail version of Ruby Sunday doesn't come with any accessories, which to be honest, I'm fine with. I can't think of anything that she could come with, especially from Dot and Bubble, because she's barely in the story anyway. As I mentioned within my Vortex Edition review of Ruby Sunday, the accessories that she comes with are nice, they add something to the figure, but they're not necessarily essential. There we go, that is my review of the Ruby Sunday action figure Retail Edition. It's a really lovely addition to the shelf. I've got to be honest, I prefer this version to the Vortex Edition. I think just generally it is easier on the eye. The colour palette is more pleasant. I love the combination of the lighter and darker blues. That pattern on the jumper is also really nice, but the same compliments can also be extended from the Vortex Edition. The likeness is stunning, it looks just like Millie Gibson, and I love the use of the tinted coloured plastic on the face, so the paint application is solely focusing on those smaller facial features. I also love the new Gen 3 articulation. It makes the figure more visible. It feels more modern too. However, there are still a few issues that need to be faded out, I think, in the future. Generally, I think I want more confidence as a user that the articulation is going to work correctly and not snap when I bend one of the arms. At the minute, this figure does feel a little bit too flimsy, and the same applies for the other figures released as a part of this collection so far. But generally, I love it. If you like Ruby as a character, if you love collecting Doctor Who action figures, this one will be right up your street, and I don't mind that it doesn't come with accessories either. It's fine by itself. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for regular Doctor Who videos. Have a nice day. I shall see you all next time.